Oops. It fell over.
You know, to be perfectly honest, I kind of forgotten how cool and powerful those things were. The sonic solutions, yes, not the product, but these little devices here, all kinds of tuning forks and singing bowls and clackers and devices of all kinds here. Welcome, great to see you. Hey, Winston, good to see you, my friend. Fathead, great to see you as well. Still struggling with those denture things, so if you hear them pop in and out, just be cool about it. It's just shameful and embarrassing for me, but it's still a challenge. Okay, so I have to also admit that I'm wildly unprepared, or far less prepared than I'd like to be this evening, but I did instead get to spend a great afternoon with my lovely bride, so I'm not, I feel somewhat bad, but not too bad, because that was awesome. Hey, Brett, great to see you, and everyone who's here live and who will come later. So again, I'm your friend, your host, the Great Baldini. It's glad to see you here. And so I had intended, as I said, to go through, and we're going to continue to do this. I know it feels like I'm putting it up, but I want to continue to go through Book of Revelation, although I think I'm probably going to segment that up and probably do them live here, chop it up and send them over to the Mologosis Exegesis channel, which, if that sounds weird, it's in the show notes, a new channel, because this one has been, demonetized and it's gotten strikes on it. And pretty much every time I do just a noodle stream, or during the noodle portion of the stream, I get a copyright claim, not strike, but a copyright claim on it. It's extemporaneous improvisational music, but usually it's the Koreans, presumably North Koreans. This time it was some Middle Easterners that did it, but it's harassment, and unfortunately YouTube not only doesn't stop it, but they kind of foster it, because they don't really have to, they don't have to prove anything. They just say, hey, I want that. So they take it. And so even though the channel's not monetized now, and I've never monetized the spiritual themed streams ever, they're now putting ads in it, which makes me unhappy. But anyway, we'll figure it out, what to do going forward. But kind of tied into that, right? There's a bunch of things I wanted to get to, little bits and pieces, and I'd been threatening to, and I still may. It has been kind of a bummer with all the health stuff. It makes it really challenging to plan. But the idea was I had this new thing, the crock pot. I think I have a slide for it somewhere, but I won't bother with it right now. The crock pot, similar to a previous thing I used to do as a morning show twice a week. Anyway, just something to keep up with the news and sort of see how that relates to our view. And just kind of give some insight on it. But there are a number of key things I saw going by, and I thought, hey, you know what, I should probably comment on that, because we're getting here. Not that I have anything groundbreaking to say, but, maybe just to point your attention to it. If you, like me, I would like to be, let's say that, and certainly like my lovely bride is, who just doesn't want to, or flatly ignores the news. It's a good idea, right, because it's mostly lies. But you can often tell what they're planning to do by what they, lie about. Sometimes things are obvious by their absence, and sometimes we can tell what they're doing by what they claim, and what they say. Oh, this is a lie. Well, as soon as they tell you that, then I didn't hear about that. What's going on? And so we'll cover a couple of those as well, and try to tie it all together. And ultimately, I think the point being is the opposite of fear mongering is seeing that, yes, even though it looks pretty dark and ugly out there, you shouldn't be afraid, right? Because if you follow Dad, you know this is coming, right? And you know that he's got you in his hand. And even though things will get tough, and he never promised it would be easy, right? In fact, he promised it would be difficult, but he said he would be with us until the end. And I believe him. He's been, out like perfect to me the whole time I've known him. And not just me, but others I know as well. So speaking from personal experience, again, I make no claims other than taste and see that he's good, right? I think you'll find, as have others, that if you reach out with humility and an open heart, you say, "Hey, Dad, help me out here," that you'll find him. And to that end, I'll start. I'll just start here. For many people who have spent next to no time in Scripture whatsoever, usually those are Catholics. Hey, no, I'm not trying to bag on Catholics particularly, but what I am saying is most people are at least aware, or at least somewhat aware of Our Father, the Lord's Prayer. And it appears in a couple of different places in Scripture, and I'm going to go with right now Luke chapter 11. Because I want to follow along with what's after it. But we'll start here. And we're going to use the American King James Version. It's the King James American Version. It's right here. All right. So he came to pass that he was praying in a certain place when he ceased, and one of his disciples said to him, "Lord, teach us to pray, as John also taught his disciples." And he said to them, "When you pray, pray thusly." Right? Say this. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, and thy will be done, as in heaven, so also on earth. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins, as we also forgive everyone that is indebted to us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And again, Mandela effect or not, that's the basics of it, right? We all know that. But what I really, without getting into any potential changes, either by changing the translation or just whatever, what I really want to get into is the next portion, because this is what I kind of want to lay the groundwork for today. Again, this is Luke chapter 11, and we're going to pick it up at verse 5. And he said unto them, "Which of you shall have a friend, and shall go unto him at midnight, and say to him, Friend, loan me 3 loaves, bread, for a friend of mine in his journey has come to me, and I have nothing to set before him. I don't have any food." In fact, let me switch over here to something that'll probably be a little easier to follow along with. Oh, I don't want that. I want this. Yeah, it's fine. All right. So Jesus said, so suppose one of you goes to his friend at midnight and says, "Hey, friend, lend me 3 loaves of bread. A friend of mine has come to visit from out of town on a journey, and I don't have anything to feed him." And suppose the one inside says, "Hey, don't bother me, right? It's late. My door's already shut. My children and I are already in bed. I can't get up to give you anything." Sounds reasonable. I mean, sounds like people, right? People go to people. Verse 8, "I tell you, though, even though he will not get up to provide for him because of his friendship, yet he will because of the man's persistence. He'll get up and give him as much as he needs. So I tell you, ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and everyone who seeks finds, and to him who knocks the door will be opened." And here's a place where, again, translation or the version you use can be a difference, because in the King James, we get this. Let's see, is the King James American? No, the one I was reading in my iPad. Shoot, which one? I thought it was Berean, because it's the one that I've seen before, and it's so perfect, because that really is the what I'm trying to get to you. So the Dewey Reams. I'm so sorry. Again, I was kind of unprepared. But the point being here, the way that it translates, it is closer to the original in the Greek, right? So the Greek kind of translated from Aramaic. And here it says it like this, right? It says, if you continue knocking, right? So it says here, when it says, you know the phrase, you probably heard it, ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and it will be open unto you, right? But in the original, it's repeats it. It says, ask and keep asking, and then it will be given to you. Seek and keep looking, and you will find. Knock and be persistent, and it will be open unto you, right? Because that's what it says right above it, right? It says because of his importunity, right? He's actually making a pain in the ass of himself because, right, persistence to the point of annoyance, right? Because of this, so be persistent. Don't give up in your prayers, right? I got a friend. I have some friends that are really, I don't want to say old because, my age, many of them, but we have known each other a very long time. And I'll just use the first name, Tommy and Angela. And they, lovely bride, great people. And, she's having health issues and has for a while. And it's really, difficult and painful like these things are. And we've been praying for her for a while, but persistently, right? And I think we're going to see I trust that we're going to see breakthrough. I think it was already happening. But we're being persistent in this, right? And so if you have need, know, right? Be persistent. Trust. If you just go, ask and then go, I knew that wasn't going to work, and have plan B, right? This is what, again, it says in James that if you ask, right, without believing, you're a double-minded man. You're not going to get anything, right, because you didn't have faith. And so this is where the faith comes in. Ask knowing, right? He is good. Because how can we know? Look, keep going. All right, so ask and keep asking. It'll be given to you. Seek and keep looking and you'll find it. Knock and be persistent. It will be opened unto you. For everyone that asks receives, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. To whom? Everyone, right? Everyone that is a friend and is a child, right? So you can't just ask in vain. We know this also again in the book of James, right? Because you don't have it because you ask, you don't ask, and you don't ask because you ask amiss, right? You're trying to fill your belly instead of, asking in accordance with the will of Dad. And so verse 11, which of you, this is what I want, just like so beautiful, which of you, if he asks his father bread, would he give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will he, instead of a fish, give him a serpent? Or if he asks for an egg, will he give him a scorpion instead? Right. We can go back to Isaiah. I know my plans for you, plans to prosper you, right, and not destroy you, plans for good and not evil. He is good. And this is why I can say all the time without any hesitation, though he slay me, yet I will trust him, right? Because he's good. And I don't have to, probably one of the biggest changes over my period of following the way is that, I was very frustrated early on because he's not very good at answering why. Right? One of the first questions we come to, why? And he's not really good about that. But what he is good about, he is good and he's love. And I've learned that I can trust him. So it doesn't matter why. And maybe I'll understand later, maybe I won't. But what I do know is that he's good and trustworthy, and the outcome will be perfect because he is perfect. All right. So, again, I just find this so beautiful and so indicative of who I know Dad to be. Which of you, if he asks his father for some bread, will he give him a stone? Or a fish, will he give a fish or a serpent? Or if he should ask for an egg, will he give him a scorpion instead? If you then, being evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father from heaven give the good Spirit to those that ask him? Right? Just beautiful. And then the next line just kind of leads unexpectedly almost into the next part. And he was casting out a devil. And the same, right? So casting out devils, right? So what is that about? I have said over and over that, or at least recently in the last couple of years, and I go back and look at the things Jesus did in terms of miracles, the number one thing, far and away, more than anything else, casting out unclean spirits. And he also said, as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the return. And by implication, we can also say, as it was in the days of Noah, so it was in the days of Yeshua, so it is in the day of his return. So what does that mean? Lots of boogies around? Yes, and we see it all over the place. And that's where we're going to come into here. All right, so we're now moving into the parts of the Re-Axe, right? So what's going on around us, right? We know all sorts of things. Let's take a look here. We can take a look at the overall briefing, and I might just randomly look at this, but I do have a couple of items I wanted to specifically take a look at. All right, deadly attack on U.S. troops as barrage ramps up in Middle East. Okay, so I know that everybody is supposed to be scared about that, right? So we'll take a look here and see what we can find about Middle East conflict here. We got a Middle East deal right here. Let's see here. Yeah, let's see. We got this. Yeah, that's old stuff. What we're really looking for, something like this, something like that, where we can take a look. So one of the really interesting things here, and let's see if I can find this on the YouTubes. I notice, as have you, I'm sure, that many times people do what's called the Freudian projection, right? Or pardon is my Freudian slip showing, right? Where they sort of accuse other people of doing what it is they're actually doing. And for a variety of reasons, but usually, it takes the punch out of somebody else saying, no, you're doing that. No, you were, right? And you'll find this a lot in politics, but you'll also find it a great deal with any deceiver, any Machiavellian type, machinations, or in this case, New World Order, that sort of stuff. So they're going to accuse people of doing what it is themselves they do. So if you, the other day, and I should have saved the clip, but it's way back in my history. I'll just try to find it here. It has to do with, 7, and then I'm going to be careful with the words I say, right, because it's already bad enough. No, this is, again, debunking. So here, that's what they say. Now, if you can see this, is that, I want to see, there was a guy who kind of went apoplectic about it. And it was so obvious, right, that he's, oh my God, you wouldn't believe what these crazy people think, right? And then he basically lays out what is most likely the truth. All right, so let's see if I can find this. But basically, you can see, if you can take a look up here, what I typed in for a search. That is what the accusation was. Oh my gosh, these people are so crazy. There's this conspiracy theory going around. And, the thing is, again, like many of those things, I hadn't heard it until, let me tell you a story. There once was a farmer, a good old boy, and he lived out on this farm. Closest place was about a mile away, and one day he butchered his prize hog, and he butchered it and cleaned it out, and he was getting ready for Christmas, and so he's going to have a big Christmas ham. So he butchers his hog and hangs it up. Well, leaves it overnight, comes out the next morning, and it's gone. And his first thought is perhaps a predator, a coyote or something had come and gotten it. But he looked and he saw shoe prints. A human had come taken it, and he didn't. He wasn't very appreciative of what he saw, but he had family to feed. It's Christmas Day, and he's got to get some ham. So he goes out and slaughters his next biggest pig. And it's a hardship and a big loss, but he doesn't say a word about it. and he, makes it through the holidays, and then it's about this time, middle of the first month, late first month. He's down at the feed store, and he happens by one of his neighbors, a couple of miles down the road, another farmer, who was always kind of a jerk, but he trying not to judge. But he comes up and he asks the farmer. He says, "Hey, did you ever find out who stole your pig on Christmas?" And he said, "Well, not until just now." And so this is the case here. I hadn't, in some cases, even heard what the accusation was until they tried to refute it. And I go, oh, yeah, that's what makes sense, right? The biggest, what makes sense in this, and you can see, again, some of these crazy headlines. And what I'm going to tell you is probably not a surprise to most of you, but most of the rest of this, I'll begin by saying most of the rest of this episode, TGB, that's me, the Great Baldini, Re-Axe. So I'm going to, again, give you my take on these things. I'm not claiming that I have really any inside knowledge. I mean, I might, but I'm not going to make any claims about it. But I'm just going to tell you what my take on some things, right? And not because I want to try to convince you. I have always said I would be very disappointed if anybody left after one of our chats, one of our presentations here, just taking everything I said as wholesale, right, as verified. Now, again, I would hope not to in any way make you sus, right, that what I was telling you wasn't accurate. But again, I just don't want you to take my word for it, right? The whole point of this is to discover for yourself and learn what things to question. And ultimately, what I've come to is to question everything, right? That essentially, and I've said this before, and I do believe it, that even the term truth community is rather a misnomer, because it's very difficult to know what the actual truth is of something without knowing everything, and especially because they've done such a bang up job in trying to obfuscate and destroy all the evidence where possible of everything, such that it would appear after some years of research that pretty much everything that they tell us is a lie in some way or another. It's either completely manufactured out of whole cloth, it is a distortion, or it's upside down of the truth in some way or another. And certainly this conflict is not only no different, but it is, to me, without a doubt, one of the most misinformation-ridden and propaganda-fueled things I've ever seen in my nearly 60 years. I mean, not just as every single word pretty much that I see in print, especially from legacy mainstream media and a variety of others, not just is it codswallop, right, and garbage, but it is so wrongly wrong, right, and so authoritatively in error that is just it's gobbledygook. It is crock. So and I have noticed that all of this. Well, one of the first things I think that anybody would have noticed, and again I imagine you too, and again I apologize if I go through many steps here. I am not assuming that you don't already know. I'm not assuming that you're a dummy, and so if I kind of break things down and seem pedantic about it, it's not because I assume that you're dumb. It's because it's part of the what I know about teaching or presenting to adults is you have to find common ground, and right, you're looking for things where we agree with one another. We all agree that the sky is blue and the grass is green, and waterfalls are beautiful, right? I always wonder who told us, who told our soul that a sunset was beautiful, right? Anyway. So we start with the things that we understand, and then we have common ground, and we move forward from there. So anyway, if it seems too slow and pedantic, just tell me in the chat. I would also have you think, I'm going to go through a number of these things, and I feel badly unprepared because I had a list of things, but like I said, I ended up spending a good deal of time with Mom today, and we had just a blast. And so it's good. It's good for your spirit. Laughter is good medicine. So I don't have some of the things in pocket like I would like, but certainly if you would like to add something or ask about something, probably a segment that I'll continue to do if I do not go ahead and launch the Crockpot program, because, again, I sort of miss that, and it's a great way to take kind of lighthearted pokes of the news. On the other hand, that is the program that caused the channel the most problems. I'm still getting strikes for things that have been privated for 2 years, so I'll probably have to delete them entirely. Anyway, so let's move forward. All right. So our friends over, so again, we know the Israel, we'll call it Israeli, the Jewish Muslim problem, because truly that's what it is. We have the children of Abraham. We have Isaac and Ishmael, and that conflict has been going since then. And it's not going to be resolved until everything is resolved. That is a central point. So knowing that, right, it is not difficult to think that if external sources wanted to bring about the resolution of all things, that this would be the place to focus on, given that that is a central theme in just about every telling of this story, no matter which side you're getting it from. This bit is included. So if you're trying to make things happen, it would seem that somebody might be motivated to bring that about. And that is certainly the claim. And again, I'm not here to really refute or debunk. I really want to give you just, again, my take and way I'm looking at it. And so, again, if it gives you some clarity or insight in the way maybe you can ask questions or approach things or what to look at. And again, I think of myself less as a conspiracy theorist and more of a pattern recognition specialist, right? Just kind of looking at things. What I was specifically looking for here, and I'll know it if I see it. One of these reporters that just went full on apoplectic, and it just looked like something straight out of Snopes, where he goes, "You won't believe, what they're saying." Right, and let's see if I can add to this. Because they went really hard on it, right? We can probably watch a little bit of this. How long is that? I don't want to spend a lot of time, and I don't want to get in trouble. But so fake viral videos, we know that that's going to be a thing. Where was the Israeli army when Hamas attacked? Now, see, that is a great question. We know, right, those of us who watch and pay attention to these things, that in the world, and those who look at things, and intelligence, I think, is the key word there. The primary one is called the Five Eyes, and that's comprised of the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. And they know everything, and they interchange information. At least they tell each other they do. They don't really, because everybody's a liar. But they have everything bugged everywhere. They have a backdoor to every form of communication anywhere on Earth all the time. It is part of the hardware, right? And that's why, for example, the U.S. is kind of hostile toward China, right, about chips and chipset and manufacturing, and it's made in Taiwan, and why one of the reasons, not just the reason, but one of the many reasons that China wants Taiwan is because this is where these high-tech chips are, and the back door is hardware into these things, right? So I've said this on many occasions, that you cannot prevent being snooped upon, and in fact, using things to try to prevent it, VPNs and hard firewalls and all kinds of IP spoofing and stuff. What it does is actually just draws attention to you, right, as somebody's trying to do that. So building a high fence just invites robbers, right? You say, hey, look at me, I'm doing something here. You're wearing camouflage out and a ski mask walking into a Neiman Marcus, right? It's like, yeah, you're drawing attention to yourself when you do that. Again, not that there can't be advantages to a VPN, certainly to dial in from some other place for Netflix or whatever. I mean, I canceled mine, but you get the point. The point being that all this stuff is the United States has owned this. I mean, in the U.S., the quote intelligence community, going all the way back to the 1920s, has been spying on Americans and others forever, right? All the time, opening all the mail, domestic mail, since in all the way back in the 20s and 30s, in J. Edgar Hoover, right? So not a new thing, and they have been scamming, sucking up, vacuuming up all the information from digital stuff since it was digital, like 1996-ish. They've been grabbing everything. The problem was, of course, there's so much data that how do you look through it, right? You don't have the wherewithal. And that's where artificial intelligence and doing SIMs became really potent and powerful. Why the necessity for it? Because you couldn't have humans going through all this much data. So you have AI do it imperfectly at first, but it's getting better as you look for keywords and context, and then you escalate it to an actual person to look at it, right? So point being that everything is monitored now, not only by the Five Eyes, which would be the ones that I told you, but also on the other side, China, right? And Russians have been getting their sticky fingers into everything. So everybody kind of knows everybody's business. But over and over again, it's been shown that the competitor for the Five Eyes is not China or Russia, but Israel. They have, Mossad has some of the most sophisticated techniques and technology, and they have been one of the premier agencies at compromising people, and doing it in a very effective way, more so even than Cremora or the original Sicilian mafioso, really mafioso, and how this works, right? You draw somebody in. I first learned it as the LBJ school of politics, but it's well before him. It's Machiavellian and well before even that, which is where you target somebody that you want to manipulate, and you find their strengths, that's something you want, their weaknesses, of course, and their desires, right? And so you put it all kind of together, and so you set it up where you give them what they want, and ideally, of course, the heart of man is desperately wicked, and who can know it? And so people have screwed up desires, whether that's little kids or drugs or deviant sex or whatever it is, violence, murder, cannibalism, whatever you name it. If given the opportunity, and they are assured that no one will know, right? Because they're covering for you. The most powerful secret societies in the world are covering for you. You can do whatever you want, and then they give you plenty of it. But of course, it's all being recorded, and you're being compromised. So you can get whatever you want, but what does the profit of a man? If he should gain the whole world and lose his soul, and that's what happens, right? That's exactly the nature of the Jeffrey Epstein honeypot. Is that he and Giselle Maxwell would get these young girls. They paid them well again, and I always have empathy for people who have been abused. But many of them, again, were looking for a leg up. They were looking for excitement. Again, I'm not victim shaming or anything. I'm just saying these things happen. Not always because somebody gets kidnapped. You know what I mean? People put themselves in situations. I can say honestly that I put myself in some really stupid situations throughout my life. I was not sexually trafficked, right? But I did some things in which, had it gone the other way, I would not be here with you today. So anyway, the point being is that this is how it's done with pretty much every secret society throughout history. They get you in, and sort of like Skull and Bones 322, you lay naked in the coffin, you masturbate, you tell them your deepest, darkest secrets, and now they have your deepest, darkest secrets, and you keep them for each other and never reveal the secrets. And so that buys you in. You're now part of the club, and you can do all kinds of things, and you got each other's backs. So when you do something terrible, then they'll cover for one another, and this goes through their life. Mitch says, and I try to leave a small digital footprint, you can fight this by trying to confuse it. Yes, I do. Yeah, exactly. And here's one of the things that I do, right, is keeping in mind to that end, we're going to look at that for a moment, when they monitor you, that most of what they're doing is, feeding the AI beast. And that AI is largely used for running simulations, right? So they're running many real-world simulations in real time of every person, right? Multiple instances of them with different events in the world, and they're seeing people's reactions, and they're trying to create chaos. And that's kind of the point of the rest of the program here today, is that order out of chaos. That is their motto. And so what do? You create chaos in order so that you can bring in the prescripted type of order that suits you in a way that people normally would not accept. But when things are chaotic, then you're the hero to save the day, and people giving up security, freedom for security, or at least the promise of it. So here, and again, I should have saved the exact clip because it was just a quick minute, and this guy was just going apoplectic about, oh my God, you won't believe what these people actually think. They think that it was a false flag is set up, and that the Israelis actually did it themselves to start World War III. That's a pretty direct line. And you go, well, that would sound crazy, except that that's exactly what people want. Right? So keep in mind that this conflict has been going on for more than a year now. Right? So we have the special military operation that Russia is pursuing in Ukraine. A lot of people have a lot of feels about that. I just want to put it out there right now that I'm going to also talk about some politics, both geopolitics and United States and North American politics. And just a disclaimer that because I'm talking about it doesn't mean that I'm bought into it. In other words, my perspective, and again, this is my opinion. You can take it however you want. I'm not trying to, mislead you in any way. I'm saying this is the way I see it. But to me, it's pretty much all just a theater. It's political theater, really, and it's a distraction, right? It's a facade, and but it's not inconsequential. There are actual consequences because while it is, air quotes, fake in terms of what they're doing, the outcomes have actual consequences. So, when I speak of these things, don't if I talk about political candidates or whatever, keep in mind that I'm not supporting or attacking one side or individual because I'm favoring another. Right, that's the usual immediate perception people have is if you take on the red side, then you must be for the blue, or if you take on the blue side, you must be for the red, and I'm neither. And I've said numerous times that at least in the United States, my view of both political parties is that it seems for the last 40 plus years that their entire platform is not what they can bring to the table, but really simply to show that the other political party is unfit to hold political office. And in this one singular aspect, they are both spectacularly accurate, and that's it. They simply just prove the other to be unfit for office, and that is true. But everything else is garbage. They're not offering anything other than hatred for the other guy. And again, when you get into a conflict where the least common denominator is hatred, where do you go from there? Right? Again, that kind of struggle, that kind of conflict doesn't determine who's right, only who's left. Right? So it's not, it's meaningless. But so the point being here, that was the last of my delicious coffee. Now it's still water. Is that since the conflict began, I've been watching it, with one eyebrow up, and because again, according to my perspective on things, this stuff is all pretty well managed. It is a play, and it couldn't be more. It couldn't be more obvious to me, right? Okay, so we have, Volodymyr Zelensky. And so keep in mind that he was a comedian, right? That he comes from, again, an entertainment background, like Ronald Reagan. Oh, I don't want that Wikipedia family. But all right, so here we go. He was a comedian. And in his television show, he, again, if you want to talk about life imitating art or, truth in plain sight, right? He became beloved in Ukraine by playing a part on television, a role in which he was a school teacher who then ran for president and won. And rode that, and there was no gap. He went right from there to being the president of the Ukraine. Now, again, am I saying that he's not a legitimate person? Again, fuck if I know, other than to say, well, it would appear, right? I mean, just from the appearances, it looked like we have actors. And from the outset, he said things that, would make any red-blooded, passionate, based person, 3 cheers, right? Russian warship, F you, right? Oh man, that's the stuff right there. That's the thing you want to hear, right? Somebody saying F you. Then they make a stamp out of it, right? In the initial days, they had the Ghost of Kiev, which was then later turned out to be, again, misinformation, but still kind of floating out there nonetheless. But then his next, big quotable quote, which was, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition. And you know, I loved it, right? I loved it. I was like, well, that's the right, you know, certainly the right things to say. But as always, when you when something seems to be too good to be true, right? Maybe it is. And again, who's to say? And so here's the thing: I understand, right, that people tragically are dying by the tens of thousands in that part of the world. Like really, people are dying for the purposes of, right, and that's where it becomes more difficult to put your finger on, right? I mean, from my perspective, it looks like just like World War II and World War I, a giant blood ritual, and the blood is always required to summon demons. It's not you'd like to know that for many Wiccan and satanic practices, blood, specifically and ideally human blood, ideally the blood of children, is used to invoke and manifest supernatural. So, yes, there will be many ways of death, and again, we're going to cover that more from the scriptural aspect coming soon. But I want to get through these things, right, and go when we look at the news here again. So what do I? And then I see a lot of people right now they see the same things I do, right? So then we come back to in the U.S. and if you look at social media, right, you'll see many of the people that I would consider kind of in my I don't know, we see things pretty close to me, right? We don't trust the government, right? We see the lies and we see the hypocrisy and the multi-layered society. So we don't trust them. So when they come over and they ask for billions of dollars to give these guys, and we know, you know, even if it were the best up and up situation, there's going to be some corruption and graft. I mean, it's not like it doesn't happen here. Again, people are going, oh, all the corruption and greed, it's going to be money laundered. Where do you think it goes here, right? You think those $1,500 toilet seats and $1,200 hammers aren't involved in that? It's not as if, again, our hands are clean here. But even if it were a perfect world and going just exactly, you know, to the right people, and again, I believe in the right of people to defend themselves, right? But what we are seeing played out is, unfortunately, the theater of war. Again, this is my views, and I'm not. Again, I would love to be wrong about all of this. I really would, but this is what I see: is that whether a useful idiot, a wind-up doll, right? And I could even see it. I could even see this guy, you know, say a guy is principled, but you know, if you put him under, you know, stress and put him in a certain situation, he's going to respond a certain way. You've still got him either way, whether he's on the take or not, right? If it's like if it's like The Sopranos and you pay him, you know, with a sack of money, great, you got him that way. Or you know, if it's like The Truman Show and everybody around him is you know, fake, and he thinks he's doing the right thing. Either way, you got him, right? And in some ways, it's better to have the second guy because he's a true believer, because he's less likely to get turned by the opposition. He won't take money to turn, right? For example, coming back to the U.S., one of the people on the Republican side in Arizona, Carrie Lake, right? She looks to me like a true believer. True believers can't. I mean, I love people, you know, people who have passion and truly believe, but true believers can be the most dangerous because they cannot be dissuaded or think rationally often, right? Once they bought in, and this goes for, you know, the cults of you know, the people throwing tomato soup on the Mona Lisa, right? For stopping oil, or in this case, sustainable food. I'll show you why that's crap as well. I'm sorry, manure. We'll show you that as well. And again, none of the things I'm going to tell you today are groundbreaking or should surprise you in any way. What my intention is to kind of have you look at things overall and just say, hey, these are things that I'm noticing happening around us, and going, this is how I want to respond or feel like I should. All right. But anyway, we're talking about Zelensky here, right? He included The Servants of the People, in which Zelensky played a fictional Ukrainian president. Right, there you go, all the way up to 2019. So from 2015 to 2019, and then he gets elected to the presidency. Okay, so in 20th of May, 2019. Wow. Okay, so won a landslide victory in a snap legislative election. Okay, well maybe it's just a maybe it's a quinky dink, right? And then so we've got Russia versus Ukraine. But weirdly, right here's a really weird one. Typically, in this sort of situation, historically in my lifetime, the Republican side in the United States has been what we would call the hawks. They're they're down to get the Ruskies, kill a commie for mommy. They're all over that, and they would. They'd love to be flying over Moscow every day with B-52s loaded with bombs, and saying, "Come on, come shoot, just trigger finger, dare us to do it." That's usually what the Republicans are like, and usually the Democratic side is more of what we call the doves. They're usually try to go with, a diplomatic solution, and in this case, it was kind of the opposite. And again, caught me off guard a little bit, but it made sense, right? Because you keep in mind that the hard left is always, now it doesn't mean the right isn't in the in the actual political arena on stage. The right isn't necessarily that different. They just package it different. But amongst the rank and file, generally, the air quotes progressive left is pushing for and all about, worldwide, I would say global, but we'll call it, worldwide governance, right? That it should be under one, and so getting rid of nationalism, getting rid of national sovereignty, and having everybody come under one roof. And of course, by their thought, and these are, some legitimate arguments if it were in. If it were administrated properly. But when you get rid of nationalism, right, there's no us versus them. And so we're all one. There's, makes war go away, right? Well, we know that's not the case because people get upset with their neighbors. People are people. So it doesn't matter. You can never legislate morality. Look at the prohibition in the United States. You make a law against something that people already do. You don't make them stop doing it. You simply turn them into criminals. And then open up a door for them to, now that they're part of the criminal element and that they get to know people in the underworld, now the door is open for all kinds of things. That's what they used to call a gateway drug. What they used to say marijuana was a gateway drug. Why? Because immediately when you started doing it, you became... you got to know, the plug, your dealer, who also had cocaine and heroin and, LSD and all that other stuff for you to try. So the gateway wasn't necessarily the drug, it was to connect. Yeah. And, they aren't wrong in that regard. If you're willing to try one, you're probably willing to try some of the others. All right. So anyway, so we have Zelensky and we have Russia, right? They're doing the thing. And the whole point here, right, ultimately is for you to be polarized, to take sides, one versus the other. So you can argue with your neighbor. And again, should anybody deviate even by the smallest amount, then they're usually kicked out of the club because how dare you? How dare you hold that position and have a thought of your own that's different. Okay, so add to that, we also know that in China, let's see, and this is, so we also know that China and Taiwan are really, China is making some unambiguous, very direct moves, openly saying that they intend to bring Taiwan back into their one China no later than 2050. They'd love to do it by 2035 and really love to do it even sooner than that. It is part of Xi's aspirations for his, leaving his mark. That he was able to accomplish this. And so they're pushing it right now. And so like dominoes begin to fall, once you begin to have a hot war started, not just minor skirmishes here and there, but an actual shooting conflict over in Ukraine, now this opens a door for new conflict. And I'm going to this one first before I go to the other one because this actually began earlier, although they weren't shooting missiles or bullets. What they were shooting is right. So they were shooting water cans at the Philippines, right? So now, so keep in mind, it's not just China versus Taiwan. Everybody's taking sides. Right, so that's the whole point, is that they're polarizing. This is the whole point, is to get these axes of power, just like World War I, World War II. We have, NATO and BRICS, and so the idea is to separate these into near-peer adversary groups. So on the one hand, you got China. On the other hand, you got the Philippines. Taiwan itself, very tiny, but Japan has jumped into that now as well. South Korea is jumping in there, and then, of course, North Korea jumps in on the side of China, and you can see how this whole thing goes. People begin to align themselves, just like polarized light. They begin to align themselves in groups and make this all come to fruition. So there's conflict number 2, which is getting set up to be a hot war, and everyone really expects it. Again, they keep saying over and over that we should expect it. Then following that, right now we get to right now we get to so if you just go Mideast conflict, right? It's deepening Middle East conflict. The Houthis, right? Today, for the first time during this thing, 3 U.S. servicemen were killed in these attacks. So previously, there were 2 SEALs who had perished trying to board a boat that was carrying parts. Iranian parts to the Houthis for missiles, and one slipped in the water, and the other one bravely bravely jumped in trying to save him, and they were both lost at sea. So those were the first 2 American citizens to lose their life in this phase of the conflict, other than what happened in Israel between October and now. I will point out that, again, between October and now, there has been so much mis and disinformation that I can't tell you what exactly is going on, other than it does appear that people are actually dying. And as, again, it says, pray for the innocent, right? One thing that I will point out, especially as regards to this Middle East conflict, is that, again, I said earlier that everybody is lying. And I mean hard lying about it. But this is the one, right? This seems to be the one that we're kind of getting to, that ultimately, and that's why I found this thing here. And so I really wanted to see that. Maybe I'll have to go back through my history to find that. But it was several days ago, and I watched a bunch of stuff in here. So, yeah, basically it looks like this, right? These untrue and misleading narratives have been seeded on social media or hashtags and terms linking Israel to false flag, a staged event that casts blame on another party, tripled on services including TikTok, Reddit, and 4chan in the weeks after the attacks, according to the network Contagion Research. All right, so now keep in mind, again, one could say, well, that's just crazy talk. Why would they do that? Of course, I'm sure you've been down this before. Why would they do that? But one thing that you cannot deny with this October 7 denial, I love that, right? Like they call it election denier. What? No, there was an election. You know what I mean? But anyway, yeah, it's names that they immediately do the ad hominem, and they start, calling people names, right? And all at the beginning. But it says these untrue, misleading narratives, right, have been seeded on local media. So some argue the ambush was staged by the Israeli military to justify an invasion of Gaza. Now, again, what I found interesting is that in that news report that I wanted to show you, he was going apoplectic because he finished that off by saying, in order to start World War III. And I went, oh, there it is, right? They said the quiet part out loud, right? Because if you, it sounds crazy if you just say, oh, the Israeli military, really, they would kill their own people, to start a war. Well, keep in mind, what did we see coming? What were the initial things that came out right from the beginning? First of all, that the Israeli military, the IDF, was caught with their pants down completely, and again, you just say that in and of itself stinks to high heaven, because they know as much or more as the Five Eyes. They're plugged into everyone, everywhere. There is less than zero chance that not only would they not have been aware that there's something potentially coming, but as soon as it began happening, they would have responded immediately and in force. And it went on for hours. The other thing that became immediately aware in the aftermath, right, is, let's see if we can find something here. So one of the things that came up, right, was a bunch of GoPro footage came out, right? And so
small glimpse into how catastrophic.
All right. So what they did was, so now we have all this stuff, right? Suddenly there's this, just like, just like you got a pristine passport at the bottom of a building that has been turned into dust of the guy you want, right? Just pristine condition. And I remember that news report. He goes, "If you can believe that," and I was like, "No, I can't." So conveniently, here they go with this stuff, and notice how fewer people are around, and it just all feels off. It reminds me my first impression, especially with this, and the way this sort of has a first-person shooter look to it, reminded me very much like the ridiculous footage that came out of New Zealand and the mosque thing there that didn't happen. And again, anytime you have to make a law that it's illegal to ask questions, you know what that is about. In the aftermath, that day wasn't even over. They made it illegal to show any of the footage of that because it was so obviously ridiculous. But this had that same vibe to it, right? Just so convenient that they'd put this up, and they had the maps, right? They had the maps of them, going, and the whole thing is felt off from the beginning to me. Am I making claims? All I'm saying is that it feels off to me. I guess that, just because I'm crazy, right? Just say Baldini is nuts and he doesn't know what's going on, right? So just take it that way. But I'm asking questions because it doesn't match what we already know, which is that, again, the Mossad and military and Israeli intelligence is pretty much second to none, dude. We have the Five Eyes and the resources of 5 of the most technologically advanced countries in the world, and they're on par with us. That tiny little space, they're on par with us in terms of what they know. And so the chances that that would have happened without any response for hours is simply not plausible. And the other one, again, you just know that it's made for show. When people who have either lost people or they are uncertain about their current situation, when they get in front of the camera and they're smiling, look at that. Do any of these people look like they've been really crying and look like their lives are in danger? Look, they look like they're doing a TikTok video. They're not afraid for their lives. They're happy to be on TV. She's trying hard to look stressed. She's looking for that Oscar. But nowhere do I see mucosa nervosa. Nowhere do I see what automatically happens when you're frightened, afraid, angry, disconsolate, sad, all of which are reasonable responses to being in that situation. Your nose is going to run, your eyes are going to leak, your voice is going to be constrained, tight like this, and your hands are going to shake. Trust me, you know how I know this? Because, I got neurological conditions. And when your neurological stuff happens, it's out of your control. You cannot prevent it, right? And so you would see that kind of response. But what we don't see, all right, so I say some things are obvious by their absence, and that's what we have here, right? It's obvious by its absence. These are supposed to be, hostages being held hostage. Look at the women, right? They're women. They're supposed to be held by these terrible men who are abusing them in every possible way. And look how intense she's looking at her to say the right thing. But they're not afraid for their lives. She wants to make sure she gets the message across, right? So Israeli captives addressing Netanyahu. They're supposed to be calling out to Benjamin Netanyahu, save us. And without even listening, look at the body language. And I've said this several times in the last several months, right? Just while aging isn't for sissies, when your body begins to betray you, it's a pretty sad thing. But there are some advantages that come along with it. And one of them is at least the opportunity for maturity. You've been around for a while, and I say, at my age, you've seen the parade go by more than once, which makes it all the easier to spot the clowns. It's a lot more difficult to get taken in by this kind of propaganda, especially when you know what the propaganda looks like. And certainly we see this now, and I have been coming, I don't want to say conclusions, but I'm coming to the position that much of what we see as error and sloppiness in the execution of these events in the last several years, it's been shocking to me how horribly hokey they've been done, all kinds of terrible mistakes. And I think, I thought either it was because, one, they're just, they don't care anymore. They're done with pretense. They're just going to run straight for the end. They just don't care anymore, right? Just forget even trying to cover your tracks. Just go. Or they were just such hubris, such arrogance that they just, thought people were so stupid. And in many cases, they're right. They can look right at it and not acknowledge it or understand it. But I think that part of it, I really do think that part of it is they really are just inept. That the newer generation seems they can't think. The iPad babies, the iPad kids, they just can't think. And if you go back and I've talked a number of times about Marshall McLuhan and the media is the message, that sort of stuff, how earlier generations, if they were raised before any technology, like if they were raised before radio, those who learned to become literate, learned to read and write before being exposed to radio, had more than twice the cognitive functionality as those who did not, those who had listened to radio before they learned to read and write. And then, and that was at the very beginning of, he said this in the mid 60s. And so really at that time, it was just at the point where the majority of households in North America, Canada, and the United States have been saturated with television. Up until that point, it had been something of novelty, something where it was kind of the upper middle class had access to, less the kind of the middle lower class. Up until, again, mid 60s, sort of like that, early 70s, and it was very much pervasive by that time. And we were actually reaching a time when the average American household had more than one, about 1.4 to 1.5, I think is the number. Don't hold my feet to the fire, but I think, around there, 1.4, 1.5 televisions per household. And, now that's up to like 4, something like that. But in any case, once, so he was speculating at that time, and certainly it's obvious, right, that if someone who had been exposed to technology before becoming literate, exposed to just radio, right, the theater of the mind, before becoming literate, if they had half the cognitive function of the other person, imagine what being exposed not only to television, the hypnotic flickering images, but now the incredibly destructive short-term memory destroyer of the current black screen. It's incomprehensible. So, so Brett says, you saw how dumbed down everyone is, including, smart Lockheed Martin employees. Yes, when you work there. In March 2020, all the way through today, my opinion of the masses can't get... Exactly. I mean, going all the way back, Brett, to when I was a youth, right? I heard on TV and that sort of stuff, that, the public is stupid. And I thought, no, they're not, right? Come on, man. Yes, I've met a couple of dumb people, but for the majority of people that I'd met had been, at least... middling, IQ of about 100, 1.00, it's a quotient, right? So that's the value. No, I went to public school. My one and only year that I went to public school was my sophomore year in, just say, semi-rural, suburban Texas, whatever. And I was in shock. I could not believe how, and I don't want to say lacking capacity, but lacking ability, right? Not that they didn't have the capacity perhaps for it, but they certainly lacked the ability to do any kind of logical thinking. And most of them, there were a few here and there, right? But by far, those were the aberrations and the outliers, where most of them couldn't mentally rub two sticks together. I mean, they just couldn't get there, and it was shocking to me. And I'd never before heard of, I didn't know what it was when I was offered, advanced placement, AP, or remedial class. And I'm like, remedial, what the hell is that? And they're like, oh, we have a class for people who have struggled with their core subjects. Like they have remedial English, remedial literature, remedial math. I'm like, no, what's the advanced look like? And they're all, if if you're doing a preparatory track for college, if you think you're going to go to college, you should take the AP, and we give you, 1.5 times the credit for it. I'm like, oh, that's cool, so I'll do that. And so I showed up for the first time for English, AP English, and I was just in shock when they went right into sentence structure and breaking down sentence diagrams. I'm like, why didn't we do that in like 7th grade? What are we doing? What are we doing? We're sophomores in high school here. We should be well beyond this. And then they couldn't now. See, I was just like, no way. And then I talked to my teacher about it. I was like, what is going on? Because did I get the wrong class? Is this remedial instead? She's like, oh no. And I was like, I didn't want to know what remedial looked like. And she rolled her eyes at me. And by the way, she was a very cool teacher. I still remember her. I won't tell you her name, but I remember her. And she's the one that turned me on to the poet E.E. Cummings, who one of my all-time favorites. I love the work of E.E. Cummings, but and she gave me a book of his, and which you can probably tell is an inappropriate gift from a early 30-something high school English teacher to a 16-year-old high school boy. Anyway, I was in shock. I just could not believe. Hey, Stephanie, great. Oh, Stephanie, great to see you. It's so great to see you guys. I missed you. But yeah, so I was shocked at how low thinking people were. Like, not just, I don't want to call them dumb, because it's not that they lack the capacity. It's that they lacked any interest to spend any effort. There was no interest in higher-minded philosophical thoughts, right? It's like, where can I get beer? And how can I, get more money without putting out too much effort? It's just, it's like that. Anyway, hang on, I'm gonna hit this thing again, because I had missed this thing. I keep forgetting how cool this is. I'm gonna do a little ringy-dingy thing real quick here, because it's so cool. Hang on a second. I agree, Stephanie. I would like the same. I've got a couple of pieces of intellectual property I've been meaning to sell forever and haven't developed them. But I probably should try now, right? Just to try to come up with some bread, last ditch effort to get a piece of land so I can invite some people out and start building tiny houses and see how far we get before they take it away from us in the interim. It'd be fun to hang out with you guys. In any case, yeah, I just keep like I spent a year not doing the ringy dingy. I just forgot how cool and how refreshing it can be. Man, the sonic tools are pretty amazing. Okay, so continuing on, what that's a nice transition because I want to use that to remind you of something here, which kind of hopefully lays the groundwork for the remainder of this program, however long it goes. Because I could go for a while, right? There's all kinds of things. But here's where I want to get to. And this is sort of the overarching thing, and then we'll just kind of come back to it. And that is the interconnectedness of all things. You've heard me talk about this before, right? That we are, again, this is my view, right? So I'm not trying to convert or convince anybody, just share with you my views, that all things, and I would say all living things, but I think everything is interconnected. Madeline and I were discussing again this weekend, and often we come back to this about minerals and rocks and how years and years ago I was given a piece of fossilized. They said it was dinosaur poop, but whatever it was obviously a corpora. You know, it's like a turd, like obviously a spiral turd with a little nip on the end that turned to rock. And I had been tasked at the time. I was doing a record label thing, and I was like everything I did. I did recorded, mixed, mastered, did the artwork for the posters and the CDs, and band manager, tour manager, all that garbage. And so I was out on tour with a band, and they were at Tulsa Blues Festival that weekend. And so I was tasked with taking this to it was a rock museum, right, a geological museum, if I remember right, it was on the grounds on the campus of Oral Roberts University, I think, or some Christian university there. And so I went Sunday on our way out of town, and it wasn't open on Sunday, but he had agreed, the old guy that ran the place had agreed to meet me there so I could drop this piece off for him as a donation for him. So when we came in with the gal that I was with at the time, he asked if we'd like a tour. And I said, well, sure. He was going to give us the private tour. And so he started off at the beginning, and by the time he got about halfway through, my head was blown. When I was a very young lad, I was, into Rockhound, that sort of stuff. And one year, we were always at the Puyallup Fair because my dad was a presenter there. And so always went there during the fair and was always finding interesting things. And so one year, I talked him into buying me a rock tumbling set, which at the time I think was about $35, which was huge. It was like $350 in 1972, something like that. Anyway, and I was into it, but the rock tumbling, the polishing takes so long, right? That for a kid, it's hard to keep your interest. And so, forget about it. And it's hard to do. But I kind of lost interest. But then later, kind of got back, coming all the way back a circle, all the way around, doing this stuff, and then talking to Cammie about rocks and crystalline structure and all this sort of stuff, and really coming to understand with his presentation that rocks are, I tell you this, living things. Again, not the kind of living thing that we understand, but living at a very different. A very different metabolic rate, obviously, but that they grow. It's crystalline, and it shows preferences, and they indicate a kind of sentience, a kind of awareness and intelligence, just like water. And so, again, by the time we got halfway through, my mind was blown. By the time we got to the end, I was ready, really willing. I mean, I believe that if a rock had started speaking to me, I would have believed that. I would have had no problem with that. Going, yes, okay, fine. And so all the people who get butthurt about crystals and all that sort of stuff. Again, my take on all that sort of esoteric stuff is, of course, there's something to it. Right? People wouldn't do it if there wasn't. The reason Christians get all weirded about it is divination. It's dangerous. Well, yes, I mean asking, quote, the universe, just whatever's out there to give me guidance, probably not a great idea because, Dad will take your request directly. But if you just ask it randomly, somebody's going to fill in that space. And it's probably not going to be somebody who has your best interest in mind. And that really is the problem with divination. It's not that, it's that you either get it from Dad or you get it elsewhere. And when you get it elsewhere, you're probably going to get lied to. So for what it's worth department, because if you really dig down to it, right? The priests and and the Levites, they had the Uman and the Thummim and the vest there, the vestments, and it had all the stones on it, the 12 stones, and that's how they would light up and apparently and communicate with God that way. So that's a form of divination, and yet they say, hey, don't suffer a witch. Well, again. Not because those things aren't real, but because they are, right? So yeah. Anyway, talking, and so, for example, and since Winston just jumped in, and this will continue the thing, so Winston recommends the episode, and again, this interconnectedness of all things. A friend, a good friend, well, I'll just tell you, Jenny Spark, she's a friend, and she also makes these crystal and rock talismans, I guess you wouldn't call it, necklaces, whatever. And talisman, I know people get weird, it's a bad word, but she sent me one, and shungite based. And I got to tell you, somebody had previously sent me one, right, from back in the day when I was kind of, in the middle of stuff. They'd sent me a couple of pieces of orgonite, one for me and one for the wife. And what I noticed later on, when that person showed their true colors and decided that they did not like me for whatever a reason they'd invented in their head, but it was now negative energy. And so once I realized where that negative energy was coming from, I had to kind of like, where is that? And I, oh my God, there it is right there. And I found one and tossed it, and it got better. And I was like, no, I still feel it. And then about a week later, I found the other one, tossed it. Much of the heaviness was gone. Now, way back in the day, and I would, let's see, I'd probably be in trouble. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I could do this. Back in the day when, let's see if I can find this. When my granddaughter was on her way, my very first granddaughter. Let's see, do I have it? Oh, is it here? Come on, I would love to find it and show it to you. So as she was coming, right, I did this thing. Based on quantum physics, right? I had read an article way back in the day. So bear in mind that I spent a number of years in manufacturing sector for pro audio. And so there's a lot of esoteric stuff that goes into the physics of it, because there's not only acoustic physics, transdutional physics, but also psychoacoustics in that. Like we all perceive sound a little bit differently because we perceive it physiologically, because it's an analog. It's your body that's receiving the information and translating that into a perception. And so you not only have the perception, but you have your attention, and you have whatever neurologic thing you might have going on as well. And so we're interpreting it. So we don't all hear exactly the same thing. And so that becomes a challenge when you're trying to either, mix a record, because everybody's going to have different taste, or making a product, right? You know what you want your measurements to be, but sometimes the measurements don't always sound good, right? Like making a product sound, an audio product sound flat all the way across the spectrum doesn't sound good because we don't hear that way, right? We have what's called the equal loudness curve, which is actually unequal, but the Fletcher-Munson equal loudness curve because of Harvey Fletcher, it basically is that smiley face curve using an EQ, because it takes more energy to hear low frequencies and high frequencies. So I really am trying to find this thing, and I wanted to show you, but when my, where is it? I don't see it. That's so sad. Maybe, is it there? Well, I have pictures of it. Someday I'll show it to you. But when Olivia, my granddaughter, was about to be born, I made a little box for her, and I put some symbols on it, and for like strength, and so I put some Latin phrases on it, and sent it to her with the idea that this connects us now, right? I was going back to working with the audio. Well, some of the esoteric stuff in audio has to do again with psychoacoustics and how we perceive things, and sometimes those perceptions are, again, based in our limbic system, what we already believe. And it was just a weird exercise, and this is a very shortened version, but I'll give you an example. if you're doing listening tests, blind listening tests between two sets of speakers, they're fed from the same amplifier with all the same conditions, and you're trying to listen and determine which one's better. You can alter that test and change the outcome. And I know this is going to sound weird and like I'm lying to you, but it's been proven over and over. And again, people try to explain it in a number of different ways, and I'll do my best to explain what I think is happening. But if you, for example, here's the exercise. So what you do is you take a photograph of something that you love, a person or food or whatever, doesn't matter, something that you have a lot of affection for, and you love that thing. And so you take that and you flip it over on the back, you take a red Sharpie and put an X on that. And then you put that in a Ziploc bag, right? And then you take another piece of card stock or whatever, about the same size as the photograph, and you take your red Sharpie and you put an X on that, and then you put it in a Ziploc bag. And then you take the one with the photograph and you put it in the freezer, and put that in the freezer. And then you take the other one, which is just the card stock with the X on it, and then you have a person, without you knowing, attach that like with tape or whatever to the back of it, or to the top if you can't see it. The trick is you cannot know which is it's on, and they will attach that to the one. And in nearly every instance, the subject will choose the speaker that has the card with the red X on it. I'm not kidding. It's not a joke. And again, lots of attempts at explaining it. Again, I think it's just simply quantum entanglement. Those things are now entangled, right? You put the red X, both it has meaning to you. It has a powerful, positive emotional value. And then they're separated. The freezer doesn't have really anything to do with it, except that it's sort of like, alchemy, right? Don't think about the red monkey. Oh, you thought about the red monkey, right? So it's over. But anyway, but it works. It's the weirdest thing, and it works, and there's a bunch of different things like it. The point being, it's this interconnectedness of all things. And so when I made this, what I called the olive box, I sent the olive box to her, such that it would connect us, right? And it would imbue her, at least my thought, it would imbue her with some of those characters that I'd written, put on the box. And again, I have photographs of it somewhere. I cannot find them right now. I know they're in the cloud somewhere, but it's unfortunate because I've got to show you these, this lovely work. And so that interconnectedness, right? The connectedness of all things. And I think that is, not just think, I'm pretty certain, right? That is everywhere and everything. And here's an example of it. Also, I'm a little embarrassed because, I have been so behind on everything just by virtue of the physical ailments and neurological stuff and depression and all the other stuff that goes with it. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying I'm behind, and I'm shamefully behind on things and not getting things done the way I should. And I really have to focus and push through, because I'll be pooping the bed here if I don't fix some stuff. But the point being, one of the issues I was having is that after having lost my job, you have kind of this aimless thing, right? And there's nothing worse than being a rudderless ship out floating, right? You never know where you're going to end up. And so I know I need to pick up and really start focusing on something. But the other thing is, when you're uncertain, you don't want to start heading off in the wrong direction, where you'll find yourself way miles away from where you're supposed to be. And so I tried to just be still and let Dad show me where to go, right? But for the time being, it seemed just to like rest up, and maybe recharge a little bit. So I thought, well, what are some things I could give myself to do? And I think I've landed on that, which is actually the efforts that I need to take have to do with packing and make sure that we can get out of here, because it is time to go. It's way past time to go. But one of the things I thought about, and this is about a week, 10 days ago, one of the things I thought about is, hey, I had gotten to a place on that initial thing, the Awakening project, right, where I had people send me their information, how they, what woke them up, right, a little bit about themselves, their Myers-Briggs profile, some birth date information so we could work in some astrological sky clock stuff, and just see if we saw some correlations there. And immediately I did see some correlations, that sort of stuff. But I was several steps behind where I wanted to get, because I was at a place going, hey, I think I got something of value here. I just need to press it a little bit further. And I'd been kind of waiting for a buddy of mine in Salt Lake City that we had worked together a number of years ago. And he started a company. He's got a PhD in statistics. I know, right? But he's actually, like a musician too. So not what you'd think, not a slide rule guy. He's pretty amazing character, very bright guy. And he graduated valedictorian in his class at the University of Utah and has a PhD in statistics, and started a company that does essentially the same kind of statistical analysis and data mining that I was doing for this project. And I had done some work for him pro bono, and he was going to help me do that. And help look for better ways to mine this data and write some scripts, right? So we didn't have to do it all by hand. I was like, super great, this would be awesome, and I'll really be able to squeeze the data. But he'd had suddenly, the upshot, I guess good news is his company started doing really well, and so he just didn't have time to cover me. And it's been a while now, even since I went back and revisited it. The whole point of this being that I thought about, I need to dig into that and start doing that. Within about 20 minutes, and this is like my eyes started going blink, blink, blink. About 20 minutes later, I got an email from somebody saying, hey, I haven't heard about that. And I could tell they were disappointed. And I was disappointed too, because, it's disappointing. And I felt like it, it was a broken promise. But somebody saying, hey, I haven't heard anything about this for a while, so could you please just delete my stuff? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And again, I don't even remember if I even responded, because I was like, yeah. But I knew right away that there was going to be an issue with that, because already in batches when I'd put them in, as I'd said, I had done it with the intention of making it a double-blind test, so that I was disconnecting the people from the data. And I successfully did that. So I can go back and find that person and their initial email and make sure that it's gone and their story and that sort of stuff. The data is already in the mix, and I can't connect it with them and find it because I intentionally separated and broke it. I broke the connection. So I need to write a letter. But to that person, I apologize for not getting back to them and saying, I hope this will meet your need, right? I understand why you want to withdraw permission. I get it. And I'm cool with that. In fact, if you don't want it to be there, that's what you should do, right? Because it'll mess up the data. And why do I say that? Because this indicates it, right? If nothing, this is one of those things that indicates how closely connected this is. The moment I thought about sticking my hand in that pile of data and doing something with it, immediately, because literally I got the message in like 15 minutes, which means that person immediately went, hey, you know what? It's just the same sort of thing. You think about somebody and they call you, right? You haven't talked to them in years, and you think about them and they call you, or, that stuff happens all the time. It's that connectedness, right? It's that interconnectedness of all things. And that is where I guess I want to have at the sort of the basis of the rest of this, right, is that there is this interconnectedness, whether we like it or not. And again, I'm not trying to convince you or convert you, persuade you, right, or dissuade you from your own views. I'm just saying this is the way I see it, and I'm pretty well convinced now that all these things are interconnected. For example, I'm fascinated by all kinds of stuff in physics and science and everything. And I was studying some on metallurgy and learning about different kinds of different kinds of alloys. My brain fart for a second. Different kinds of alloys and steels and that sort of thing. And one of the things that just slapped me upside the head. I went, oh, really? And they will always. It's so funny because you can always tell when you're being lied to, right? So one thing that fascinated me, and I realized that it was true at everywhere in the world that makes a foundry that makes steel. They always, as a substantial part, about 30% of what goes into the blast furnace is recycling steel, other steel to be recycled, and steel of the same compound that they want to get, because again, you put different elements in there to make different properties, but they put steel of the same kind. I was fascinated because again, what they will say to you is, oh, it's for sustainable and recycling, but that's nonsense. The Chinese over there, they don't care about that, and they've been doing this since the mid 1800s. They didn't care about recycling. That's not how it works. But once I realized every single one did it, I instantly understood what it's for. It's because it's necessary, right? And it's it's part of what Rupert Sheldrake would call the morphic resonance, right? That extra set of instructions that's not found in DNA. That something, somewhere tells root cells, what to be, right? So when you get those, those basilar cells, right? What are they supposed to be? Well, something's got to tell it. Right? So what does? And it's that intangible thing that connects, right? And so we've been looking for this answer for a while. What is that? What is that method of communication between distance and time, between connected things, like this quantum interconnectedness, quantum entangledness? How does that work? And so we look. One of the things, for example, that Sheldrake comments about is the experiment with the worms, and that they took just your basic flatworm, and they exposed it to no other way to put it, torture, light, and electricity. And so when they gave us, a variety of 3 different kinds of food to choose from, and so when it would go for their highest preference, then they started torturing it, and they would get a shock of electricity and a light, of blinding, flashing light, when they try to go for their preferred food. And so they obviously stopped getting that one, and they would get the other 2 less preferred foods because they wouldn't get that kind of thing. Well, then what they discovered is and these, again, flatworms have the ability to, they're, hermaphroditic, and they self-generate, and so they can cut them in half, and both sides will make a whole new one. And when they do a couple of generations, they can go several generations away. And so the worms that had never in their life experienced the actual flashing lights or electricity would cringe if given like the choice of the 3. They would still avoid the preferential one, but if they were given only that one, they'd go to eat it, but they'd cringe knowing that it's going to happen. Like, what? And then they did something even worse. They took some of the flatworms and they ground them up and made a paste out of them and fed that to some other flatworms that weren't in any way associated with the original set. They weren't offspring, they weren't relatives, an entirely different set of flatworms eating a food paste made of other flatworms. Yes, because cannibalism, is exciting. But what then happened was that they began showing exactly the same signs of hesitation and trauma based on that association with that food with light and electricity. Right, and that is where we get to this morphic resonance. Like, what is telling them? And I have, for a while, thought it is probably having to do with water. Right, the water is the intermediary. Water has memory. Water has intelligence. Again, here's where I feel. Again, I've let you down. As I had probably a 5-6 hour presentation on water that I've never broken back in parts to really present it as well. Oh, hey, Mitz. Good night. It's great to see you. I'll see you again next time. So, that connection thing, right? So all these things, being interconnected in such a way that, the implications are vast. I think you can imagine, right? Without getting into all those little bitty details here, that interconnectedness of all things is, and I'll come back to this. When, I've spoken in the last few weeks, right, about kind of going into the first few chapters of the book of Revelation. And as I begin to kind of set all that up, and I've got some, PowerPoint slides or whatever to kind of go through that so I stay on target. One of the, early things, and I've already kind of covered the initial thing, is what kind of interpretation we're going to use, right? And that is just, it is what it is unless it tells you it's something else. It's going to be pretty straightforward, and if it says that it stands for something else, then you need 2 or more cross-references, 2 or more witnesses from some other place to use it in that context and say, yes, this is this. And that's not difficult to do. We can kind of go straight through with that. So no problem there. And so... but as we see these things progress, right, there seems to be, again, this interconnectedness. And so it does appear, and again, I'll get further into this with the actual going through the Revelation chapter by chapter. But at the very beginning, again, this idea as I said, set it up right this, in the last episode, talking about when Jesus was asked, and it's a similar story in Matthew 24 and Luke 14. It's, and also in Mark 11, I think. Similar story. It's all kind of, interlinear. It's all telling the same story from a different perspective. But it all begins with them asking, Master, what's going to be the sign of your return? What do we know? And the first thing he says is, take heed that no one deceive you. Right? Every time, take heed that no one deceive you. So we know that people are going to lie. And isn't that where we live right now, right? A world that's based entirely on lies, such that speaking the truth is anathema, right? You're already hated for it. Jesus also said that if you follow him, the world will hate you because it hated him first. And so you can expect that the world will hate you. And in fact, he says at this time, right, those who kill you will think that they're doing God a service. That's how much it is. Because he also said that for this cause, he'll send them a great delusion that they should believe a lie. That if it were possible, even the very elect should be deceived. So this is kind of where I have been nudged real hard over the last couple of years, 3, 4, 5 years, even longer, really, with the idea that it is so important for everyone who is or wants to be a child of the King, who wants to be the brother of Jesus and the bride of Christ. What must we do to be saved, right? And so really the answer is, accept his salvation. Say yes. And then through the work of the Holy Spirit indwelling in you, then he begins to turn you into that new person. You don't have to become that new person to get approval and get your ticket home. He just gives it to you when you say yes. Then you got to follow him, right? You don't just get the ticket and get a free ride. It's the work afterwards, right? It's very, very difficult, the wearing down of the saints, but also the pruning, right? That every child that Dad loves, he disciplines, and everyone that he wants to grow, right? He prunes them, and pruning is never easy or fun. It's difficult, but it takes away those things that he did not build, he did not make. It's that self-made man, right? That we're proud of. We're proud of the things that we accomplished. But the thing is, he can't use that because he didn't make it, right? And it causes pride. But here's what I want to share with you, right? Trying to wrap it all together. And I'll give you a couple of more examples and then we'll be done, I think. This vibration, right? We've talked about this over and over. That truth has a certain, ring of truth to it, right? It has a vibration, right? So when you hear it, right? It just reaches out to you, and you go, "Hey, that's right, that's right." It bears witness, right, to you when you hear truth. And similarly, when you hear something that is not the truth, right, it also has that effect, right? So such that that just doesn't seem right, and this is discernment. But when you begin to vibrate at the particular frequency, and the closer that you get to Dad, right, the more you begin to vibrate at his frequency. And so the clearer and more direct you can hear even his whispers. And that's why, again, it's so important to get so deep into his heart, to spend so much time with him all the time that just like mom at the dinner table, right? She didn't have to say anything. With that look over her eye, she can get you, right? It says in Psalms, right, to don't be like the beast of the field where I have to take a bridle and a whip to get you to go, right? Just let me lead you with my eye. Trust in me. Be like a good child to their parent who can be led with the eye. Just all I have to do is give you a quick little nod and you know what's up. If you're listening closely, right, and you're in tune. And when you're in tune with the Creator, you're going to be out of tune. It's going to be chaos. It's going to be dissonance with the world, right? And so they're going to stick their hands over their ears and go, don't talk to me, right? Because they don't want to hear it. And this is what's coming, right? This is what I think is that we can see is coming. and what the separation is. This is why you're going to be hated. This is why you're having so much trouble in this world, is because you're literally at a different vibration. You are now vibrating nearly out of phase with everything else. But the upshot of it is, when you're totally out of phase, you're kind of invisible. So there's that. But so if we want to, again, get back to this, and this is the stuff that I see around us. So last a couple of weeks, and I mentioned this last week, it is one of the most heartbreaking things, because I've seen it every day for about 120 days-ish, and that's this. And it's like every day somebody deletes themselves and their family, and they think that it is a better way. I know where it is, right? It is demonic. It's demonic oppression. And it is heartbreaking. But it is everywhere. And it's not just in the U.S. It's now in Canada. I've seen it in Mexico. I've seen it in the U.K. And it's coming every day, and sometimes multiple a day. This is what's happening. And we're going to see more and more of it. And again, as I said at the very beginning, one of the most common, in fact, by far, the most frequent miracle that Jesus performed was casting out unclean spirits and sending them back to hell. Right? It's happening right now. It's all around us. And people are suffering. But, so the other thing that's been going on is this stuff. So first it was, if you remember, right, but there was the one in Las Vegas where they saw them in their backyard, right? So, and I just recently seen an update to this, because everybody thought, oh, it's kind of hokey or whatever. And there's some stuff in an update that actually, you can see some stuff that they're reacting to. And again, like most of it, right? You get bad video. It's all sort of designed like theater, right? You can expect the same thing as you can with one of the, terrorist acts, is that it's going to be shaky video. You can't quite see it. It's sort of implied. It's the same thing all the time. So again, what does that tell you? Well, it probably tells you that it's some kind of psyop, right? So then you got the one that was supposed to be these 9 to 12 foot shadow people in their backyard. And then you have the one in the recent one in Florida at the mall, right? And again, some video, but not entirely convincing, but just enough to be weird, right? So you got, what's going on here? Yeah. So here you got some stuff, and it's supposed to be, but look at that police presence. They said this was from some kids, and I don't know, but here's, again, hard to see. Looks like it was shot with a potato, as they always are. But here is what to know, right? Is you're going to get more and more and more of this. And one of the things that you can see is there's an increasing number of this stuff coming from all around the world, right? So again, here's a 16-minute one, right? And again, I'm not trying to steal anybody's work here. I'm just saying you can look and find this stuff all over. It is on the increase it's everywhere. And some of it is way more clear, right? This is 4K right here. This is something that looks just like a TR3B, right? The big triangle thing. Very similar to one I saw in 1987 in north central Texas. That was then, I found out later, some decade later, seen that same night in the same spot by some other people. So it's really weird. Anyway, so you got all this stuff going on. So again, each is a deception, though. We're led to deception. And what was the deception that von Braun told his that gal? Well, it was going to be the Cold War. We had that. Terrorist, we had that. In caves, right? We had that. Then an asteroid, and I'm pretty convinced we're going to have that, or whatever. They're going to call it an asteroid, right? And I'll explain more of that in just a moment, and we'll get deeper into it in another program. But asteroid, and then aliens, right? But it's all fake. So we know that the asteroid is fake. Well, again, there will be something come because again in Daniel 2, a rock cut without human hands that hits the image at its feet, which is where it's the last. That's the last kingdom of clay mixed with iron, and they don't mix. Right, so here we go. They don't mix. We have people are polarized, and that is again, I think the second horseman of the apocalypse, which is the red on a red horse. He's got a sword to take peace from the earth that people might slaughter one another. I think that's where we're at right now. We're coming into the next one, which is going to be the black horse, which is commerce, right? That it is going to be famine. You're going to get difficulty on the supply side, and logistics are going to be messed up. Oh, what's happening right now? Houthi rebels, right? Logistics are going crazy. So again, all this stuff. If you want to take a look at some of this stuff, you can look at again this guy, James with the That Is Impossible channel. And again, I'm not saying it. Stuff is real. What I'm saying is there's a bunch of stuff, and some of it's interesting looking, but the amount of it, right, is that it is intended to make an impression. It's intended to get you to go, hey, maybe that is real. Israel. Wait, maybe that's Israel. The point being here, right? Again, what did Jesus say when they said, what is the what will be the sign of your coming? So, let's take it. Matthew 24. They said, tell us when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and the consummation, the end of the world? And Jesus answering them said, take heed that no man seduce you. Take heed that no one beguile you. Take heed that no one deceive you. Right? You can put this any way you want. Be careful that no one misleads you. Right? So the first thing, don't be misled, because everything coming at you is a lie. Oh, the other thing I wanted to talk about. Yes, I'm glad I remembered this. So the other one coming in nicely. Again, I'm being careful what I say because they're just looking to throw me off here. But you're going to find a lot of news on this about a second civil war in the U.S., Civil War 2.0. And they are not kidding. And they're telling you to get ready for it. In fact, they're trying to cause it. How? Well, again, you take a look at the border right now. You've got one side that's doing everything they can to keep it porous and keep it open, and the other side doing everything they can to keep it closed, and for reasons. And again, if you take, it doesn't matter which side you take here, because if you take sides, you're already kind of in their game. Again, you can have feelings about it. Everybody's gonna. But is there anything you can do? Really? No. Trust Dad, right? And again, I would say this going over to. Again, the Israel-Hamas conflict, right? If you take a side there, right, either way, I think you're going to be on dangerous ground. If you take the side of Israel, like many of the, Chinos, Christians in name only, or those that have a religion, they believe that they should support Israel no matter what. Well, again, the state of Israel. And every modern state, every modern government is, of course, sold out to the NWO. There's be no question about that. They are absolutely 100% in the demonic book club. There's no question about it. So why do you want to support that? And then, well, should you support Hamas? Of course not. They're, Muslim crazies. I'm sorry, don't mean to offend anybody. I'm not saying that Muslims are crazy, although some are, but these people are radicalized crazies, right? And it is not, again, the idea of genocide. That's hilarious and disingenuous because they had the opportunity to leave on numerous occasions or get a two-state solution, which they would not accept either of those, right? Because from the river to the sea, they're not going to be satisfied until Israel as a state is gone. That's the nature of this problem from the very beginning. But the thing is, right, so what do we do? What do we do as followers of the way? Not take sides, sit on the fence, and so it, hits your sack? No, that's painful. But what did Jesus say to do? He said, pray for peace in Jerusalem. There you go. Supporting either of those sides is kind of the opposite of that right now, because if you support the state of Israel, there's not going to be peace. There's going to be bloodshed. If you support Hamas and, free Palestine, which is not a thing. It's like saying, free the Bible Belt. It's not. It's a location. The Palestine is just like saying Levant. It's a region. It's a regional thing. There never was a country like that. It was part of the Ottoman Empire. And so, yes, it was a Palestine region, but it wasn't a state, an independent state. So, but what is the name for the new? So here we got Civil War in the U.S. They want that, right? So here's the thing. Just like I said earlier, that the mainstream news was screaming and crying foul because this crazy conspiracy theory that Israel created a false flag, attacked its own people to start World War III, right? Well, you had me at World War III because they absolutely are trying to make that happen. And again, they're trying to get everybody to pick sides and converge to make worldwide conflict all at once. So you got the Asian Pacific conflict with China, North Korea, and some other players there. You might get some regional stuff in there, but maybe Iran, bops their head in there again, shows up with Russia, and they then align with most of the other Arabic world to divide things up like a turkey. And then, of course, we've got the Americas. And what comes as a result of this? Well, I'll just say the U.S. from the Second Civil War. What's the outcome? Well, again, order out of chaos. You make things so terrible and so bad that any outcome that doesn't include that seems better. So problem, reaction, solution, the Hegelian dialectic, you want an outcome? Well, they're not going to accept that. People right now would not accept a worldwide governance where they had no rights and had to eat the bugs and own nothing and be happy. And with total surveillance. They won't like that. But, right, if things are so bad and the option is without that, every living thing will die and we're going to get hit with an asteroid, and the only way that the friendly aliens will save us and help us is if we accept their unassailable godlike AI that they give us to be our overseer, and we have to do everything it says, or we get thrown out the airlock because we can't evolve as a species unless we do that. In fact, we're in the remedial class right now. We're kind of the spiritually retarded ones of the bunch, the redheaded stepchild. And humans didn't quite get it. And if you want proof of it, here, we'll just take a sample of your DNA, look right there, put it in our computer, and it says copyright, 40155.63 start 89. Copyright, the Klingon Foundation. There you go. We invented you. We created you, and it's in every living thing. That's what your junk DNA is. It actually says that. If you want further proof, here we can create a 3D image of any time throughout history. Here's what actually happened. And again, if it were possible, even the elect would be deceived because, there's technology to do that and fake it right now. But it will certainly be very convincing. Information will be very convincing indeed. But what they want is for you to take sides, and any of the issues, whether it's abortion, immigration, voting, marijuana, homesteading, any of those things, pick one. All you got to do is get that, and they got you stressed out, freaked out, and trying to do something about it, right? Like these knuckleheads who, for example, right? This is one that I always question, right? Is that you got these protesters, right? They do these crazy things, but it's like, why do you think that's going to help, right? So it's like you're not bringing anybody over to your side. You're simply making it more hated. So just like this, you have these protesters, right? And these idiots throw tomato soup on the Mona Lisa, or at least in front of the Mona Lisa. You'll see that it is behind glass. And what I want you to notice is the slow and farcical response here, because I will tell you real quick that had I lit up a cigarette right there, I would have had 9 security guards tackling me and tasing me within before I could even get that thing lit. However, here, if you'll notice, the reaction time is not only very slow, but make sure you get it all up there. Nope, get in there now. Okay, there you go. Get your statement in, take off your jackets, and then, okay, we're going to call for backup. All right, so do they go after these people? Nope. They come and bring, partitions. Don't look, right? But do look. Make sure that you get a shot of that while we're putting up these things. So very clearly done. with the volition and participation of the Louvre. Now, for what purpose, you say? Well, again, to make, one, protesting, a thing. But so what are they protesting about? Again, they'd have to explain it to you, and that's part of why it doesn't work. What they're protesting for in this case is sustainable food. Well, I mean, food is sustainable. If you throw pieces of potato out in your yard, you'll get potato plants. It comes up naturally, right? Because Dad. But what they're doing, the reason this is happening in Paris, right, is because that is the contrary. That's the counter narrative to the French farmers, right, who are now spraying slurry. I love this. You know what slurry is, right? That's what the wet, goopy stuff out of the bottom of the dairy barn yard. That's slurry, the stomach contents that come out of the cow. And so they put about 14,700 pounds, so about 7 tons of this, and sprayed it through the windows in a number of different buildings. It was awesome. They also put some of the bigger, drier type of manure that we would use for fertilizer, as well as some of the rotten produce. They took that and dumped it in front of government buildings, and they're protesting, right? Again, bringing in migrants and not giving them an opportunity to compete because they're bringing in other things subsidized from other countries. So again, the farmers are going up against them, against the government. So the government says, oh no, we're fighting back because we want, but I mean, these protesters, we want sustainable food. So, give it to the government. Of course not. You go talk to the farmer, right? So they're creating a counter narrative, basically, is all that is. In the same way, the Just Stop Oil, right? It's to bring you the idea that everything's bad. And so, but the point is, like, if you go to Just Stop Oil and you look at their protest, right? They do the stupidest things. And what do they do? Is it to make people agree with their position? No, it's to make people angry with them. So what do? They stop traffic, right? Well, how do they think that's going to help, right? Similarly, you get these crazy people who throw a big protest, and what do they want? So we have... So free Palestine, right? So what do? They have this big thing where they clash with police, all over the world, whether it's London or New York or whatever, and they're demanding for an immediate ceasefire. Well, who are you demanding it of? Who do you think is going to get that message? Like, you can go over there and are you telling the Israeli government? Do you think they're listening to you? Like, you're just throwing a temper tantrum. That's all you're doing. You're showing the world that you are so deluded, and you have... essentially main character syndrome, that you're so important that people will stop everything they're doing because you're throwing a temper tantrum in the street. Gosh, we better stop that. We better stop that right now because, oh my gosh, these influencers are having a major meltdown. No, we don't care about you're yeah. Okay, so what are we looking at here? The reaction. So TGB Re-Axe. What am I reacting to? Like all this stuff, right? None of it is a surprise in the sense that it may be some of it may be shocking, right? But it's not really that surprising what they're doing because the script has already been written, and they're pushing toward an end goal, and they want these things to happen, order out of chaos. And primarily for you to hate the guy next to you. So here's another one I wanted to bring out. And this kind of shows what happens here. So if you're following election news in the United States, that that Biden is going to run for re-election despite his condition. And you don't have to go very far to look at all these. Biden gaffes where he just says ridiculous stuff. He can't speak English. I'm not gonna do that.
Beer brewed here, it is used to make the brew beer in this refiner. Oh, Earth Rider, thanks for the Great Lakes.
Yeah, what? He's
confidence in our economy we're building. Let me tell you who else is noticing that. Donald Trump. Did you see what he recently said about? He wants to see the economy crash this year. A sitting president. What does he say in my face? Bless me.
Yeah, except for he's not the sitting president, dude. You are. Like, you know, who wants to tell him? I mean, there's evidence after evidence of just the guy being a total goof, right? And clearly, he's not in charge, right? Obviously, somebody else, probably this guy, pulling his strings, and he's just kind of sitting up there. And you know, frankly, it looks pretty bad. It really looks like cruelty, right? They really should send this guy to a retirement home and you know, put us all out of our misery. Except that we would end up with you know, you end up with this numpty who I literally have eaten bowls of oatmeal
We set an ambitious
that are
goal
smarter.
to cut our greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030 and to reach net zero emissions by 2050. The investment we are announcing today will help us to achieve these goals, and it will do so much more. Because think also about the impact on not only the local economy, not only on an
I get stupider every moment I listen to her. I swear, it's like she's the stupid talking to a group of children with Down syndrome. It really is. It really is that bad. So here we got again bad on the one side, and then on the other side you have Orange Man. Some who consider a hero, some who, you know, on the other side are deranged about. And I'm here to tell you that there are no heroes. But one of the things that you know, kind of concerns me, not because I'm so concerned about the outcome, because I think the outcome is going to be what it is. Right? I guess I can't change that. Again, I'm not throwing up my hands and going, oh, whatever. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, right? Which ideally, hopefully, this is helpful again, I got no Kool-Aid to sell. I'm here to serve a cool glass of water to the weary traveler on the way if you want, right? Doesn't cost you anything. I'm just here to encourage you and try to remind us that we're all just walking home together, right? That's it. And I don't think I can, at this point, convince or convert anybody. I think it's too late. What I was saying before about the vibe, if you don't hear it, if you're not tuned into the right vibe, you'll never get there, because you will only be able to see the air quotes truth that you can see. You will only see it one way, and that's a distorted lie. It's the illusion. If you're not dialed in to Dad, you are going to absolutely see it, the illusion, and that's it. You cannot see it any other way. And so there's no way I can make anybody, I can't force them to see it. The only hope that we have, right, is that their heart will cry out with thirst and want to be filled with truth so badly, right, that they'll reach out to Dad. But it seems increasingly unlikely as the days go by that anybody who's at least not already in the process could get there. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it seems unlikely. But again, as we look here, right, it does seem like these things are all lining up to converge into a single point, right? A single point of convergence with with AI, with Civil War 2.0, with the taking of freedoms, with World War III, right? All this sort of stuff. Be not afraid. Right? Because again, Jesus said all these things will happen. There's going to be wars and rumors of wars and famine, right? You will continually hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you're not frightened. These things must take place, but it's not yet the end, right? For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places, right? These things are merely the beginning of the birth pangs of the time of the end, the time of unprecedented trouble. And again, without trying to make you afraid, that's not the point. Because what Jesus said is, be aware, be ready. Then they will hand you over, right, to tribulation and will put you to death, and you'll be hated by all nations because of my name. And at that time, many will be offended and repelled, and will fall away and will betray one another. Right? He said, he who endures until the end will be saved. Endure, suffer painfully, right? He promised us. That's what he promised, right? But the one who endures to the end will be saved. There you go. So hang on tight, right? Don't let anybody take your crown away from you. And that's why I want to have this lessons or just going through the book of Revelation, because over and over, even in the first 3 books where it talks to the 7 churches in Asia, over and over, he reminds us that he that endures to the end will be saved. And we don't let anybody take your crown. Don't get all the way to the end only to falter, right? Don't do it. Put your head down and know that he's got you covered, right? He is an awesome, powerful, mighty creator, and all things are in his hands. You see here, perilous times are coming, right? You don't have to fear. And so what I wanted to share with you tonight, right, for all these things around us, all these things going on, you don't need to be afraid. And you don't need to spend all your time freaking out about it. Or, again, my position, unless you feel specifically drawn and a passion for it, and you check it with Dad, right? But I don't feel the need to go running around trying to convince people about what the shape of the earth is or how they've been lied about any number of things. They can only find out themselves if they look for themselves. The more you try to force them to see it, the more they will think you're a fruitcake. And the harder it will be for them to see it on their own. The best results I've had in that regard is simply to ask questions. And from time to time, not be pushy, right? And ultimately, when they start asking questions, then they'll begin to realize that some of those questions, the answers are a little hokey. And if you have a person who has the temerity and integrity to say, I'd rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned, then you have a student. All right, so I think that is the basics of what I wanted to share tonight, and it's already been a couple hours, so I don't want to belabor the point. But I do want to reiterate that be not afraid, right? And if you trust Dad, this is the perfect time to really put on the whole armor and trust him more. If you don't know him, it's a great time to ask. Just a contrite spirit and a broken heart, he won't turn away. Just be honest. Be honest. Don't try to put up any airs, or don't try to fool him or trick him. Right? You can't do it. Just be honest. If you're scared and alone, if you think that you've done too much and you're not a good person, it doesn't matter, right? He's faithful and he loves you, and he wants nothing more than to get you out of this shithole, right? And how does he do that? No, you don't just stick up your arms and stop. That's not at all it. It is, again, it's not complicated, but it is the most difficult challenge that I've ever seen, ever. It is challenging, but it is worth it. Everything worth having, worth doing, is worth doing well. And this is certainly one of those things. It is the best treasure available, and it is life, and life eternal, and a connection with the creator of everything. I mean, how cool is that? Getting the inside scoop from the most brilliant being ever doesn't suck, I tell you. Again, he often limits what he tells me because my brain just would explode. I'm not smart enough to get it. But when he does the little thing slip, and I do get it, wow, it's mind-blowing. And so when you see things like, fear of the Lord, that's not a bad thing. That's an appropriate response, and not terror as in he's a bad person, but fear because he's perfect and you're not. And frankly, right now, if he were to expose himself in all his glory in front of you, it would disintegrate you. You would explode, which is why, right, we need a savior. People are like, I didn't do anything wrong. Well, you did eventually, but little babies. Yeah, they're babies, that's right. They're born into sin. It's not their fault. They didn't do anything wrong. But you know what sin is? I'm convinced that sin is, it's a condition being separated from God. It's a sin of being a condition of being in opposition to God by the poisoning that you received as a genetic curse. But it is, the baby didn't do anything wrong, but it's under a curse. right? And in the same way, you didn't do anything wrong to get here. You didn't ask for this. But the truth is, here we are, right? And so it's not your fault, but it is up to you. You are responsible for what you know, right? And you can't just throw up your hands and go, well, screw it. I am broken, so I just enjoy it. But why? Why stay on the ship that you know is sinking for sure, right? Hey, speak the truth. Great to see you. Have I looked into grounding? Yes, grounding. Oh, I love it. Almost every day now, I go outside and put my feet, my toesy woesies, in the grassy wassy, just because it feels good. Now that winter's kind of subsided, it was several weeks it was really cold, but yes, we have a little patch of grass out here. I know it's not ideal. What I really want out of here, I want out of Seattle, and I want into some sort of communal living with a group of people who are cool, who love each other and love Dad, and want to walk each other home and be there for as long as we can until they come get us, because they will. But until then, woo. I just want to be with some cool people, right? And get to know each other and share love between us, because I believe that we were made for connection, for relationship. That's the whole point of why we're here, and to be in relationship with Dad. And ironically enough, that relationship is what is necessary to get you out of here, to get you home. So anyway, there's that. I want to, again, just thank you so much for being here with me. And I apologize for, again, it's been sort of, inconsistent and weird for a while, but I'm trying to get back in the swing of things. Often, again, there are some health considerations. And again, I'm not trying to be a wimp. It just sort of, is what it is. And we'll try to make it, try to make it work as we can. But I'm committed to trying to be back every weekend, at least at some point. Maybe more even than once, and then at various times with some noodling streams and that sort of stuff. So anyway, we're going to go on and get out of here. I'm going to throw you a little tunage to finish up tonight. And I want to say, again, thank you so much for your friendship, and the joy of traveling the journey with you is awesome. And I'm so appreciative of the kind words and encouragement that so many of you send me throughout the week. And it really, I can't even express how meaningful it is. I'm just, I'm just trying to be a good kid and here, well done, good and faithful servant. And I think I'm, a pretty long ways away from that often. But to hear encouragement from people saying that it does make a difference and it is encouraging to them, thank you. That's what I want to hear, right? That it is of value to you. So again, thank you so much for your kindness and your prayers, and we continue to pray for one another and hold each other earnestly in prayer before the Father. And Dad, we just ask you to be with everyone who listens to the stream, whether it's live or whether it's delayed. The perfect time for them to hear it is the perfect time for your Holy Spirit to touch them. So I just ask you just send your Spirit right now. And he that hath ears to hear, let him hear. You would just touch those who are ready for your Spirit and fill them up. Give them an indwelling of your Spirit and lighten their load. The peace that passes understanding. Thanks, Dad. We love you so much. And I love you too, friends. We'll see you again soon. Throw your little tunes on the way out. I am the Great Baldini, and you are awesome. We'll see you again soon.
Watch the stars.